What is your creepiest stalker story?
Mine isn't that special, but here it is all the same. A few years ago, my anxiety was high. I was already at a point in my life where I thought I was a little out of it, but that was amplified by a lot when I kept repeatedly hearing noises outside my window. Like every single night, it just wouldn't stop. I would finally get so freaked out I'd go wake my parents up and get them to look outside, but they never found anything. I started to think I was crazy or just subconsciously seeking attention. One morning, my grandfather discovered one of our lawn chairs beneath our bathroom window. It's pretty high up and the bottom pane is fogged, so I'm not sure the chair even helped, but it was left there regardless. The next night, heard sounds again, nothing. The night after, however, we checked outside and discovered something that made my stomach churn. A small stepladder was sitting directly outside of my window, back just enough to allow someone to sit on it but still see. On my windowsill was a bag of now cold McDonald's, which is just up the street from me. Most of the food was still in there, but still, some fucker had been watching me doing absolutely nothing of interest in my room without me knowing for I don't know how fucking long. The cops were called, nothing happened. I felt crazier than ever. No one was to be found, but at least we had some evidence that someone that shouldn't be hovering around our house was at my window, watching intently through the blinds, in a space between the two curtains. Heard noises the next night. Ran outside, nothing. Earlier in the night I'd sewn my curtains together, which hopefully made it harder to see in. Apparently it did, because now the fucker had taken to climbing on top of our air conditioning unit, and from there, climbing onto our Herbie/garbage can, then standing on that so that he could see above where the drapes went. The handprints and shoe prints were left on the lid to prove it. I should also mention that there were now holes in my screen, and I heard these holes be created. He took a stick and sharpened it somehow. We found it outside my window, and was trying to stealthily break away the screen bit by bit. The hole is still there. The next night, I distinctly heard the gravel near my window crunch. There was simply no mistaking my sound. As stealthily as I could, I let out a small moan he surely heard and rolled just out of view, as if I were sleeping, then pressed myself against a wall out of view of the window, very quietly opened my door, and crept down the hall. My heart was pounding. Normally I knock on my parents' door, but I knew the slightest sound would make the bastard bolt, so I quietly opened their door and sneaked in, then informed them that there was, without a single doubt, someone outside my window. They didn't mind the intrusion and got up, got dressed, formulated a plan, and crept to the back door. I ran to the bathroom to stand on the edge of our tub and peek out the window just as the back door was thrown open, and my parents ran outside like morons. And sure enough, they saw him. They started screaming as the man leapt off of the Herbie and bolted down our driveway, which was what I was looking at. They screamed all sorts of horrible things at the tops of their lungs. "You sick motherfucker, I'm gonna fucking kill you," from my dad. "You fucking freak," from my mom. He ended up escaping across the street, hiding behind a house adjacent to us. The balls on this bastard, he kept peeking out at us as we all stood outside, but we wanted to leave him there so the cops could finally nab him. They were called, they came, and they searched, but they never found him. Bastard must have hopped a fence or some shit. Still to this day I hear sounds outside my window, even in the dead of winter, but he's never out there. He might have just been a peeper, but he targeted me specifically, and for months, until he was almost caught. What really pisses me off is that once he lost interest in me because it was too unsafe, he moved on to a house down the street, with 2 little girls. He actually managed to get in through their window, and their dad caught him just standing in the middle of the room, watching them sleep, jacking it, I think. I still don't think he was caught, even then. All I know is that it could have been way worse, but it messed me up. I trust the men in my neighborhood even less now. The men around here stare very blatantly. I've been chased home by one. I've had a guy try to jerk me into his car when I was passing him, telling him no, I didn't need a ride, and to leave me alone. All these years later I still hear shit outside my window and freak out. It's fucked up. I turn out my lights, entirely, to exercise. I do my best to avoid the windows when I undress. It just scarred me, even though it wasn't a huge deal. TLDR, Peeper fucked up my sense of safety, targeted me for months, was almost caught, then left me alone, we think. Then moved on to a house with 2 little girls and jacked it in their room. Edit, fixed some typos. I once had a classmate, let's call him Bob. Bob was in a glass closet. He would reaffirm his straightness by repeatedly hitting on all the girls in class. One day, I suggested he explore and embrace his sexuality, instead of hiding and running from it. He decided to prove to everyone how straight he was by dating me, to prove me wrong. The day after that, in chemistry class, Bob excitedly told me he was now my lab partner. "It's chemistry," he exclaimed. I tolerated it. I tolerated Bob spewing unfunny science-ish jokes and trying to edge closer to me. I tolerated him finding me in between classes to give me gifts of fortune cookies. I'm Asian. I figured he would just tire and drop the whole thing. I was wrong. One afternoon, a bit after I got home from school, the doorbell rang. I looked outside. It was Bob. This was in the era when internet was dial-up and few people had it. The time when we still paid money to remove our name and address from phone book listings. The only way he could have learned where I lived was to follow me. When I turned away without answering the door, he began to bang on the door and scream my name. I ended up having to chase him off with a baseball bat. The next day, I went to school and told the administrators what had happened. Turns out, this isn't the first time Bob had done this to a girl. He had stalked some half-dozen other girls and begged for dates. I'm not sure what happened afterward and if he was put into counseling or punished or what. All I know was Bob stopped going to that school and pretty much nobody spoke of him again. TLDR, guy in glass closet tries way too hard to prove he's straight, stalks a half-dozen girls, disappears from school. My first serious boyfriend stalked me for about 5 years after I broke up with him. The reason I broke up with him is because I noticed him becoming increasingly possessive and controlling. This worried me a lot and I was really young, he was older than me, so I decided to get out. The breakup itself was so brutal, he cried and screamed and begged. Initially after the breakup, his behavior seemed like the harmless actions of a bitter ex, constant texting and phone calls, sending gifts to my workplace, that sort of thing. After about 6 months when this hadn't died down, I started bumping into him on my way home from work or if I was out shopping, so I ended up moving. I couldn't leave my job immediately, but moving house didn't make a difference anyway. This behavior continued for a few years. His behavior became increasingly worse, I'd rather not go into detail, and the police were very reluctant to do anything. I moved every 6 to 9 months and changed jobs twice, but somehow he always managed to track me down. I didn't use social media and even insisted friends of mine not take any pictures of me in case they posted them on social media. I kept my phone number within my circle of friends, but somehow he always managed to get my new number. I ended up a paranoid wreck, thinking that one of my friends had betrayed me or that my phone company had me listed in a phone book and all others kinds of crazy thoughts. Then another year passed, and as our encounters got worse, again, I'd rather not go into detail, I decided to report him to the police again, and this time they took some action. At this stage I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't concentrate at work, I was a shell. About 2 months after I reported him to the police, I woke up one morning to a story in the newspapers about staff in the National Tax Office using resources improperly. My ex was the main perpetrator, using his job to access all of my information. In his job he had access to my tax records, which meant every time I changed job, address, or phone number, he had access to the most up-to-date information. Before the court case began, he committed suicide, and I'm not ashamed to say I cried with relief. They were the worst years of my adult life.
I hope you liked this video. Follow for more updates.